Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Canada, and this week I have a super fun video, as always, for you. It was a project I made a few weeks ago, so without further ado, let me just turn this around and we'll get our craft on. So a few weeks ago, let me back that up. You can see I've been practicing a little bit. A few weeks ago, actually, just last weekend, I had Stampin' Up! Bingo. And I really wish that we had smell-o-vision here, but I made these bath salts for all of the attendees. They went in their loop bag. Oh, I wish you could smell it, honestly. So these are using the new jam jar. And for my bingo participants, they had some DSP on the top, a belly band on the side, a little bit of ribbon, and I thought, okay, I'm going to change this up. So in this jam jar, which is a good size, isn't it? Like, look how big that is. You'd think it's just a little itty bitty thing based on the catalog. So in this jar, I have Himalayan pink Epsom salts, plain white unscented Epsom salts. I have these little blossoms, edible blossoms from Epicure. I got these years ago, and I mean, I don't eat blossoms, but they looked so pretty on the dessert that I bought them for. But I thought this needed a little something, and I will tell you, when you're having a bath with this, those petals look gorgeous. But you have to rinse them down the drain after because you'll have petals all over your bathtub. But I also have peach essential oil in here, and I will tell you that anytime I do a bingo, I always go to Amazon and find everything I possibly can to theme it up. So this was for just peachy bingo, hence the peach scent. But I thought, instead of dressing up the jar, which very easy to do, right? We're going to add some DSP, a belly band, a sentiment, a little bit of ribbon, and we're done. I wanted to show you a cute little box, which is more for gift giving, right? Now, I've done 2 of them, and I apologize. I'll tell you right now that my iPhone, which is recording this, shows up much more blue than it actually is. So you might think that this is pale papaya, but it's actually petal pink. I'll show you the difference between the two. But you can see that I used 2 different flower sets. So this was actually the first one that I did, and I used the new Art in Bloom bundle. Let me show you that. So this is brand new. It's in the new annual catalog, and there is something so special about this bundle because the embossing folder, not only does it emboss, it cuts. You can do both at the same time. Now, I'll tell you, this is the only one that we have like this. Do not do this with any other embossing folder because it will destroy it. But I thought, oh, this would be great. And like Tony the Tiger, great. And then I thought, oh, it's a little extra. And also the sentiment that I'm using is from the Timeless Tropical bundle because, I mean, we're giving bath salts. Rest and relax. You deserve it. So then I thought, well, maybe I should use the flowers in that bundle, which is easy enough to do. And I put a cute little, like, adorable, right? This one is using that same technique that I'm going to show you how to do on the window. Now, part of the reason that I did the window like this, we've all seen, or probably by now, have all seen the Stampin' Blends or alcohol markers on vellum. It's gorgeous, and I'm going to show you how to do this. I was hoping that we'd be able to see the jar inside, which is why I used the colors that I did, because, I mean, those colors are in here. But you can't quite see. And then I thought, I'll try it with some window sheet, but then you can see too much. You can see the jar lid, and I didn't like that. So we're going to stick with the vellum, but I did the same technique on, like, this is all the same piece. So this is the Art in Bloom. That's the embossed and die cut flowers. There's some gilded leafing on there. And I want to show you how to use that because a couple weeks ago I did a de-stash for my cards on my Facebook Live, my weekly live stream. Actually, it only was on Facebook Live that week, but I had asked for video suggestions. Is there anything that anyone wants to see? Because, I mean, I don't always have ideas. Sometimes it doesn't come as easily as one might think. So gilded leafing came up. So I thought I'm going to incorporate this because, I mean, doesn't it look beautiful? And then on the first one, I used some of the gold ribbon. But I thought, you know, once I put this flower in, it's really difficult to open and close again. So I thought, let's just keep it simple. Let's use one of these clever clasps, which are tiring. So if you want them, you need to get them ASAP. But I just think So cute. Now, little milk carton. These parts aren't glued down, otherwise it'd be tricky to get it out. But they do finish it so that we don't have, like, you can't see through. If you wanted to, you probably could peek in, but you still are not going to be able to tell what it is. So we are going to recreate this one because it's using that Timeless Tropical bundle. This has been around since last January. It was in the mini catalog, like the January to June occasions mini catalog. So carried forward to the annual catalog, and then it carried forward again. So I thought, let's use it, because that sentiment, really, you're not going to find anything better for something like this. So let me say it again. Let's get our craft on. Now I created a template, whatever you want to call it. And I will tell you that a few sheets of cardstock died in the making of this design. I kept messing up. Even my prototype had pieces that back on because I kept forgetting to leave these on. So this is what we are creating. Let me back it up so you can see the whole thing. So our cardstock needs to be 7 by 9.5. So move all this stuff out of the way. And I also have the Tasteful Touches bundle here. We are going to use this tag to create our little window, and we are going to use this for our sentiment. So I'm going to open up my arm here. Sounds funny. And we're going to, on the 8.5 inch side, we're going to take it down to 7. So we're taking 1.5 inches off. And then on the 11 inch side, we are taking it down to 9.5. So, and I'm going to keep one or both of these scraps because that's what we're going to use for the tag. So we'll move that cutting blade on down, and we're going to score this at 1/2 inch. That gives us our tab. And I don't think I gave you the dimensions of this, but it is 2.25 inches wide, and I believe it's 2 5/8 inches tall. I mean, it is a good size. So each of these panels needs to be 2.25 inches. So I'm going to come back this way. So 6 3/4 is our first one. 4.5. Who else wishes that the numbers were up here so that you didn't have to move it out of the way? And then 2.25. And now we're going to turn it clockwise, and we are going to score at 1/2 inch again. That's going to give us that top tab. And then we are going to go, now I made this mistake before. This 5 7/8, we are not cutting. We're not scoring. That, if you can see these two, this is the front, this is the back. We're scoring that 1/2 inch. We're going to cut this down, but not quite yet. So our next score line is 4 15/16. And I'm so sorry to get 1/16 of an inch involved, but just go 1 before 5. And that is 15/16. And then we are going to 2.25. And that is all of the scoring. Now what we're going to do is cut up each of those vertical score lines. And I always come just a little bit shy of where the score line is. You can use the side of your trimmer blade, but I like to back it up. Okay, so now we're going to turn it, and if it's easier, fold the first and third ones down. And now we are cutting this at 5 7/8. So we're going to cut those two off. Easy peasy, right? I can tell you this looks harder than it is. It really does. And then on the bottom, we're going to keep that one, and we're going to cut the others at 1 inch. So I'm going to line it up in 1 inch here. You can line it up in 1.25 inches there. Whatever floats your boat. But I do find the easiest way is to tuck that flap in so that you have no danger of cutting it. So now the rest we can do with scissors. So what I want to do is notch each one of these pieces with the exception of the front panel. Now what we need to do up here, and you could use your paper trimmer, but I kind of find that using a pencil and ruler is easier. So each of these is 2.25, and these two we want to score. So, we do still need our paper trimmer. So at 1 1/8, on each of them. Like I said, you can do this on your paper trimmer as well. It's easier to show you this way. I had a feeling it was too soon to put this away. So now we just want to angle those ones. So again, move that cutting blade down. And I did find that folding those down was the easiest way. So we're going to line up that pencil mark and line up our edge. You might just have to pivot them a tiny little bit. And now score. And then do the same on this, and we'll turn it around and come back and do the other sides in just a second. Okay, so fold that down, and now we're going to, without that being folded, you can't really tell where that intersection is. Okay, so now we're going to score it back the other way. And now just fold those down. Erase those pencil marks if you'd like. And the next thing we need to do, and this part is a little awkward, because this, as you know, is 7 inches wide and our die cutting machine is only 6 inches wide. So if you want to have that window, and I mean, why put all this work into making the salts look pretty to have them hidden? So going to take this die, I'm going to line it up so we've got an even margin. In order for this to work, we have to fold this bit down and this bit down. Now, we don't want to go in too far. We don't need the whole thing to come through, but the way that this is will just fit. So make sure that your plate is covering the whole thing, because I have found that it leaves marks where it's not covering it. That might not make sense, but don't worry about this part because we aren't actually going to get that far, but I will tuck it in just to be on the safe side. We are going to end up with a bit of a dip from that piece being folded under, but the label hides it. You'll never know. Well, they'll never know. Sorry for the shaking. I usually edit that part out, but I'm showing you so I can't. Okay, so I do get some marks from my plates. I'm going to peel that off very carefully. I do suggest taping it down. Now I'm using Scotch brand delicate painter's tape. See, so I do end up with a mark there. You could put it through with some nice clean plates and get rid of that. But I mean, honestly, the tag is going to cover it. So I thought about using a punch, but it just wasn't going to work. You can see here, I've got another little fold. So when I said that you want to cover the whole thing, that's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, it's not perfect. And if you want perfect, then you're going to have to forego the window or use a larger die cutting machine, which would mean it's contraband because Stampin' Up! Doesn't have one. So everything I'm using in this video, I know I don't mention this, but I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. So everything I use is Stampin' Up! Everything. Well, unless they don't make it. Okay, so this part is ready to go. Let's do a little bit of stamping, and then I'm going to show you the vellum alcohol technique because that's a little messy. So I actually have my stamps already mounted here. We're using this little flower, and I don't think this is hibiscus. I know the bigger one is. I don't think this is. So while I have this out, I am going to die cut my tag. Let's stamp it first. I don't like die cutting first. Then there's too much pressure. Okay, so what I did was I've got some 3x5 Post-its. I didn't want to put anything on the top of this milk carton. So I covered it up just right above that score line. And I actually don't want anything on that front window. I did on the first one and I just covered up the vellum, but I think I like it better without. Looks cleaner, and then you know that you've got your flowers on the side. So if that's how you want it, just cover it up. And I would go to the right of that score line. And then we'll ink it up. So this is Petal Pink. We're not going to see the bottom, so that's okay. And we can have half a flower there. This part we will see the bottom, so I do want to make sure that that's covered. And I'm just going to slide this on down. They aren't the stickiest, but I mean, this doesn't have to be perfect. And just turn that flower so that you don't have it exactly the same every time you stamp it. And optionally, you can put some Stampin' Spritz. So just take a Stampin' Right marker and flick the end a little bit. Helps to fill in that white space. I know it's not white, but you know what I mean? Helps to just fill it in. And again, we're going to cover that top piece because I don't want any up there. We don't have to focus on the tab because it's going to be hidden. And that was Petal Pink as well. So we're done with the Post-its. We are done with this. Let's stamp our sentiment and then I can get that ink put away. I can't believe how blue it looks through my phone. I've Googled how to get my iPhone to stop color correcting and I can't figure it out. So if any of you have any idea how to get an iPhone to stop color correcting, please let me know. So I will keep my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine out because I do need it when we get to the vellum being done. So I'm going to recommend that you use at least a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of vellum. And I've got some very messy grid paper here, but no big deal. I'm going to put this ink away. And what you need for this, I should have mentioned this right off the hop, but you're going to need some Stampin' Blends, of course, and I am using dark Fresh Freesia, light Bermuda Bay, dark Calypso Coral, and dark Pale Papaya. If you don't have Pale Papaya, you could use light Pumpkin Pie instead. You're going to need rubbing alcohol, and at least 90%. The higher you can get, the better. You're going to need a brush, just an old paintbrush that you don't really care about. And I just put a little bit of alcohol in the lid. You don't need much. I need to put this somewhere where I'm not going to knock it over. And all we're going to do is start coloring. So I tend to start with my lightest because if I mix colors, the darker ones, it's not going to make a difference if they get Pale Papaya on them. But if I got Calypso Coral on here, it's going to make a difference. So just add, there's no wrong way to do this. You're just going to add some in various places. And you want to cover, like I wanted to cover every spot. And the alcohol will move a little bit. So if you do have blank spots, it's not the end of the world. Can't have all Bermuda Bay in the middle. Whoopsie. Now this is tricky to see because I've already used this grid paper with some blends, but there we go. So there are a couple different ways that you can do this. I tried on one of the first ones that I did, I basically just brushed it around with the alcohol. The next one that I did, I dipped this in and I just went like this, but I left it for a minute and by the time I came back, everything had kind of run together and I wasn't crazy about it. So basically, I'm just going to flick some drops. If you do it like this, you'll get a very bubbly look, which is awesome. But don't let it sit and let those colors mix too much because you'll end up with a muddy mess. Now, if you want some of it to spread a little more, you can come in with your paintbrush, but I really love the look of this bubbly effect. That is how I did my second one, and I just loved it. And if you find that your alcohol is diluting those colors too much, you can go back in and color it after. I highly recommend using a heat tool. So I'm going to heat set this on low. You don't want to use high. And it will blow around a little bit. You can see how much that is looking like watercolor. So I may have to add some more Bermuda Bay in there. If that's the look that you want, then you want to paint it. Like I said, I wanted that kind of bubbly look. So now with some of it, I can still come in and add more drops and it will get that bubble look again. But like I said, if you want it to blend more, if you want more of that alcohol ink watercolory look, then just brush it. But when the Calypso Coral and Bermuda Bay blend, that's where you get that muddy color. Isn't that gorgeous? So you can use the front or the back. I actually chose to keep the front side up because it was so much more vibrant. But you can choose to put that on the inside. I wouldn't, but that's just me. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do is take some Stinkvella and I'm going to add little bits here and there just to add some sparkle. This isn't in place of the gilded leafing. We are still going to do that, but I find that this just adds a little something. The gilded leafing can be overwhelming. This is very subtle. And just use a light hand. You can outline those shapes. But look, I know that you're not going to get a very good idea of what it looks like in person, but I mean, look at that little bit. Isn't that amazing? And that's just Wink of Stella. I'm going to add a little bit more. And I find with vellum, you always want to be patient and use the lowest setting on your heat tool. You will get far less warping and you won't melt your paper. So now the next thing I'm going to do is using a blending brush. I am going to come in and basically do what I just did, but with the blending brush instead of the Wink of Stella. And then I will add, and this is another thing, you don't want to go heavy-handed. I mean, maybe you do, but the look will be very different. But go in a couple of different places, add in your blender pen. You're going to need your heat and stick powder, and then just pour that. I'm just going to dump it on my grid paper. Oh, it's sticking to all the Wink of Stella. Now, if you get pieces that you don't want to stick, like all of those, just brush it away. This is just a dry brush. I mentioned my little ladybug vacuum before. One of my sweet customers sent me this and it was just so thoughtful. I love this thing. I use it every time I craft. It's from Amazon. I will put the link below and you're going to want it. You're going to need it. So it picks up any little stray bits of heat and stick powder. It will also be great when we use our gilded leafing. But before I get to that, I need to heat set that heat and stick powder. I'm going to brush it on. And if you get more than you want in any given area, you can kind of scrape it away. Don't have a fan or breathe deeply around this stuff because it will make a right old mess. Okay, I'm going to heat set the other little bit off of my desk so that I don't blow this away, so I'll be right back. So you can take a big old pile and just push it down. I prefer using a brush over my fingers. You can use a sponge. This is a large piece, so I don't even know where my heat and stick powder is anymore. And you don't just have the one chance to do this. If you find that you want to add more, then just bring in your blender pen and do some more. And right now, it's got a fine coating all over the whole thing. I'm going to dump it over my garbage can. So remember I said there was a large coating? What's going on? But if you don't like where it is, you can kind of scrape it away. So there's a whole bunch in there. Now, in an instance where you get a whole powder where you don't, just try out some of the things you have at your disposal. I'm using my adhesive eraser because this is in the middle and I don't want to start again. When I had that fine coating on there, I should have stopped right there and brushed it all away, but of course I went and continued. But what is a 2" by 2 5/8" piece for the inside. So I'm going to stay away from that middle. Let's go inches there by 2 8. A little guillotine trimmer for stuff like this. Give it off the top. Okay, so I mean, it's not great, but we're going to use some of this for the flower that goes on there. I don't know if you can tell, I used those little flowers on there. Let me show you this one. So those are cut out of the vellum. So that's this little flower. I'll take that, and I want some gold on there. I want some different colors. Let's stick with this little piece. I can for something else. I mean, it's not bad. It's just not what I wanted for that. I wanted it a little. So I love that these stay in the die. They don't come out. You'll need take your pick tool or something pointy to get them out of there. And I use the smallest one and the largest one. But if you like the color of the middle one, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I think I'll use the middle one. I love that it has more calypso coral in there. This has got some fresh freesia and the gold. Nothing wrong with that. Isn't that pretty? So we'll get a little scrap of vellum, and I happen to have the one that I used here. Got that. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Focus, woman, focus. So I am going to use Calypso Coral ink. We're going to do some embossing with color. There we go.